everybody. Today's the day. It's finally here. The great Dollar Tree Mop Head Sweater Weather Pumpkin tutorial is here. It's been a long time in the making, and I wanted to go over a few things with you before we jump into this video, and I'm going to try and make it quick because this video is already like an hour and a half long. So, you're going to need about 6 mop heads for this one. You're going to need about 3 mop heads for this one. You're going to need 2 pumpkin forms each. You're going to need a little bit of cotton batting for this one, ribbons of your choice, some wire, and some craft paper, and some twine, okay, to get started. And I wanted to show you, this is the original. This one I made 3 years ago. This was part of a challenge, and I did this in 3 days, about 15 hours a day. I worked on it. It took me about 45 man hours to finish this one, and you can see the difference in the mop heads back then. 3 years ago, they were more of this like oatmeal color. So I did learn after making the first one, because I went and I glued the whole form together, both sides, but I quickly learned that it didn't stand up. So last year when I started my channel, oh hi, by the way, if you're new here, I'm Karen, you're at the Loft, and that makes you wicked smart. Okay, so where were we? Last year I made one just like this because I thought it was going to be my first YouTube tutorial, right? No, lost all that footage, all of it. So I took a breath. I've got maybe a dozen videos under my belt now, and I figured this is the time. This was the perfect time to bring it to you. So I'm going to go over a few pointers, okay? And then we'll get right into this DIY. You're going to need a boatload of glue. I used a combination of my hot glue and Aleene's tacky glue. Okay, it would work best if you have a detailed tip on your glue gun. Okay, you're going to want to try and not touch the tip of your glue gun to your project when you're working on it, and you'll see why. So there will be times when I was just trying to let the glue kind of fall onto the cotton batting because your nozzle will get all gunky. Okay, it's important to take breaks and wash your hands frequently. Keep your hands clean. Also, that brings me to your area, your work surface. You need to keep that clean. If you're a messy crafter and an impatient crafter, this project might not be for you, okay? So, trust me when I tell you, you don't want to keep a beverage near you, especially coffee. Yeah, unless you want a coffee stained, dipped, whatever, pumpkin. Oh, you guys. I wonder if you could dye this yarn, this mop head, these mop head strands. How would you do that? Like a rusty orangey? Ooh, that would be so pretty. Okay, anyways, let's get back on track. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the tutorial how to do one half. You're going to go off and do the other half, okay? Save this video. It's going to be in a cut. It's long, so you're going to want to come back after you do kind of each section, okay? I'm going to try and prepare all of my stuff first. I'm going to prepare all the braids that we need to use. I'm going to prepare my little tag. I might even pre-make my bow, you know, and I do run some antique wax over the burlap leaves, so you might want to just do all that ahead of time, okay, before you get started. So on this one, I thought maybe I would show you, if you didn't want to put all the labor into something like this, but you wanted to get the warm, cozy sweater vibes, right, from this, we made braids, right? Everybody knows how to make a braid. Again, I worked on each section at a time. And when it came time to join these together, I just kind of wired the top part of the form, wrapped that in some extra strands of the mop head, right? So that left an opening on the bottom. So that allows that to stand up pretty good. And I wanted to show you the side. So I wrapped each of the ends of the form separately. And when I went to join them together, because we left this space down here, these sides didn't exactly come together, but I found that the side loops of the braids fit perfectly. On each wire to finish those sides off. Okay? And I think that's about it. So buckle up, Buttercup. Here we go.
Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out and a warm welcome to all of my new subscribers. Thank you all so much. My last video has gotten over 50,000 views, and y'all have left me so many beautiful comments that really push me to keep doing what I do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know your time is valuable, so with that being said, let's not waste any more of it and get right into DIY number 1. Okay, everybody, here we go. I'm going to get out all our mop heads, and we're going to pre-make all of our braids ahead of time. Okay, so you're going to take your mop head and you're going to open it up to the middle. And there's a plastic piece inside there. And the old ones used to pop right off, but these new mop heads don't do that. So you're going to have to pull them out. You're going to probably struggle with the first few of them, but once you get like 3 or 4 of them out, they come out pretty easily. Okay, so for each one of the large braids, you're going to need 9 strands. Okay, so I'm going to lay those 9 strands out nice and flat, lining the tops up, because when I tell you some of these we're going to need every inch. For some of the ribs of the pumpkin form, they are exactly the right length that we need. So I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to seal those ends in nice, keeping them all together. So now I'm going to put my 9 strands down onto my mat, and I'm going to tape the whole bunch down, okay, so I can get this braid going. Now, most of us know how to do a braid, right? You've braided hair before, left over middle, right over middle, crossover, all the way down, right? Okay, just like this, right? Most of us are familiar with this, right? Back, left over middle, there we go, right over middle. But this is not the way that we want to do this for our pumpkin, okay? So we want this to look like a cable knit sweater. We don't want to just take a bunch of the strands and just kind of cross them over, okay? We're going to be very deliberate in how we place these strands over each other. We're not going to fold them over. Nope. We're going to take the 3 strands and we're going to pull them out, and we're going to place them over the middle strands so that you can see the middle, the inside, I should say, the inside strand, the middle strand, and the outer strand, okay? You want to keep your work very flat. You want to keep your hands close to your work, okay? And as you cross them over, you want to keep them flat, pretty much, okay? We want this to be a nice wide braid, and you want to use the same amount of tension all the way down so that your braid is the same width from top to bottom. If you pull on it a little bit harder, tighter in spots, it's going to make the braid a little bit more narrow. So we're trying to get a consistent tension on our strands, and we're going to go down to the end as far as we possibly can. And I'm not kidding. As far as you possibly can, crossing over until you just can't cross it over anymore, okay? So then we're going to take those end strands, we're going to keep them as flat as possible, and we're also going to wrap those in masking tape, okay? We're going to keep all of our braids secured on the top and the bottom, wrapped in masking tape, and keeping each strand as flat as we can. And you're going to do that 14 times. Okay, so now we're going to make our small braids. And for them, we're going to need 3 strands from the mop head. And we all know how to do this. This is simple. Left over right, left over middle, right over middle, all the way down. Secure them with the masking tape, just like the large ones, on the top and the bottom. And just like the large ones, we're going to do that 14 times. Okay, so now we got our 14 large braids and our 14 small braids. And now we're going to prepare our pumpkin form. And we need something to glue those braids to. So we're going to cover each form with a thin layer of cotton batting. And you're going to want to use your finger protectors to do this because it's thin and the hot glue is going to go right through that. So I'll just let you watch as I get this done. Okay, so now we got our pumpkin form covered, and we're going to start gluing the large braids on first, okay? So we're going to be using Aleene's tacky glue for this part. Oh no, actually we're going to be using the hot glue for this part, but in the future, we're going to use a combination of the two, the Aleene's tacky glue and the hot glue. So these large braids are going to go over top the spines of the form, okay? And I like to start at the bottom, and I like to use the top end of the braid. So the where we started the braid, where all 9 not all 9 strands were all lined up nice and flat, okay? Because I don't want to create any bulk along the edges of these forms. Oh, and by the way, I'm only going to be showing you how to do one form. You're going to have to go and do the other half off camera on your own, and then come back when you get the 2 halves done, and I'll show you how to put them together and finish it off. But for now, we're going to take our little silicone spatula from the Dollar Tree. It's going to come in so handy for this project. And you're going to get those strands all lined up flat on the inside edge of the bottom of the pumpkin form. Okay, so we're going to get that all smushed into the cotton batting, and we're going to flip it over. And I like to work with it away from me and roll it back, roll the braid back. Okay, and we want to line the middle of the braid up with the spine, the rib of the pumpkin form. Okay, so I'm going to take my glue gun, and remember, I'm going to try and not to touch the cotton batting and get my nozzle all gunked up with fuzz. I'm trying to just let it fall onto it. And here I'm going to pull a little bit, because remember I said some of these ribs, we need every single inch of these braids, okay? So I'm going to pull a little bit on the braid, making sure to line the middle of that braid up with the rib of the form, and just laying it, just the middle part, into the glue. I do not want to get any glue on the outer, I'm going to call them rings, okay? The outer rings of the braid, okay? Those strands that we worked so hard to meticulously place so that we could see the inner strand, the middle strand, and the outer strand, okay? I do not want any glue underneath there, and you'll see why after we get all of these on. Okay, so I'm going to come down to the end here. I'm going to cut off the masking tape that's holding those ends together for me, and I'm going to split them around the stem of this form. I'm going to, half of the strands are going to be on one side and half going to be on the other. And when I flip this over, you'll see I don't have a lot. There's not a lot to spare. Okay, so I think these two ribs in the middle of the pumpkin are the longest. So I'm going to lay my glue down again on the very edge of that form. I'm going to get my little spatula, and I'm going to grab those ends and fold them over and press down on them until that glue sets up and it cools off. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do another one. I'm going to let you watch me do another one. And with the magic of editing, I'll come back and they'll all be done. And then we'll get all the little ones glued on in between each of the large braids. Okay, so right here, I'm going to show you that you don't want to put your strands straight on. You know, you kind of want to angle it a little bit so that when you flip it over, it's going to kind of follow the angle of the spines of that pumpkin form, if that makes any sense. Okay, so now we're going to glue on our small braids, and those are going to go on in between each of the larger braids. Okay, and just like the large braids, I like to start at the bottom edge of the pumpkin form, and I'm going to get my hot glue on the very tips of all 3 strands, get my little spatula, lay that right in there until it sets up, and pull that over top, just like I did the large ones. I like to kind of fold it back, lay the glue down so I can see, where I'm putting the glue, and keep it in a straight line, and then roll the glue into it. Now, you can just kind of lay the braid on top of the glue, right over the cotton batting, okay? But I'm going to show you that I'm going to put a little bit of tension on it as I'm gluing it, because I want to kind of make an indentation. I want to add some texture to this pumpkin. I don't want it to lay flat. I want it to look like the cable knit is popping up off a little bit. And you can see there's a little bit of give in between each section. So when I lay those little braids down, I'm going to pull on it just a little bit, just so it kind of makes a bit of more of a groove, I guess. You just watch me. Just watch what I do here. Okay, guys, this is where it's going to get really tedious, okay? Because now we need to fill in all of the rest of the spaces. And we're going to do that one strand at a time. Okay, so now this is where it's going to be very important that no glue was up under those outer rings of your larger braids, okay? So for this part, we're going to use the Aleene's tacky glue, and I found that it's easiest for me. If you can figure out another way to do it for you, go right ahead. But I found that it was easiest to lay the glue into the whole section instead of laying a bead of glue, putting down a strand, laying another bead of glue, putting down another strand. So I just kind of filled the whole section that I'm going to be working on with the glue. And you could see there in the beginning, I kind of lifted up the outer rings of the, like right here, lift up those outer rings of the braid to get up under there, okay? And I like to work along the small braid first using a full single strand from the mop head. And you'll see as you build up the strands and you lay one next to each other, as you get closer to the larger braid, your strands are going to get shorter and shorter, okay, to get up underneath there, okay? So, did I just put a strand in there? I can't tell. Okay. So I got all the glue down. I'm laying my first strand, and I lifted up that outer ring of the braid, kind of tuck that in there. I want to get all my ends of these single strands, I want all concealed, okay? So this first one, I'm going to pull that over to the back side, hot glue that down. I'll clip all those edges later, okay? And see, I'm kind of pulling down on that strand, that single strand. I'm pulling it down onto close to the small braid, okay? I'm going to take my next strand. I'm going to lift those little outer loops, rings, whatever, of the braid. I'm going to tuck that up under there. I'm going to get it into the Aleene's tacky glue. And I'm going to kind of smush it, pull it down again, smushing it into the first strand that I laid down. Because what's going to happen is when you get this all filled up, and you get the other one all filled up, and you go to join them together, you're going to have to pull on the sides a little bit. And when you do that, you may see some separation, okay, in between the single strands. You may see some separation, and you may see some of that cotton batting coming through. So I'm almost kind of gluing the single strands together. Like, I'm not mad about it if I'm getting glue on the next strand, you know, next to the one that I'm working on, because it's just going to kind of secure it and make it all that much tighter, okay? And you'll see when I get up, I'm going to get as close as I can up under that large braid. You'll see the pieces will get shorter and shorter, and then I go back. Once I get that whole section filled, I'll go back and I'll lift up all the outer rings, loops, rings of the large braid, and I'm going to hit those with some hot glue. And I'll press those down into the single strands. So all my cut edges are going to be covered, okay, and sealed in, and you won't see any of them. Okay, so I'm going to let you watch as it plays out here. I'm going to do one more section for you. We are almost halfway there, everybody. You're doing great. Hang in there. So I'm going to show you how to finish off the very end sides of these pumpkin forms. So just like the other sections, I'm going to lay down my Aleene's tacky glue in the whole section. And I'm going to probably go through my scraps because I saved those pieces that I cut off, because I don't think I'm going to need a whole one. I think the very first one isn't a full strand. And just like all the others, I'm going to lay them down into the glue, pushing them up against each strand so they're all connecting. I'm not worrying about the exact size, because once I get that section all filled up, I'm going to just flip it over and glue all those edges down. Okay, there it is, our completed half of our pumpkin. Get all your edges all tucked in and glued down. Everything's looking good. And with the magic of editing, now we have two. And now we're going to put them together, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to take your first half, line it up with your second half, making sure that your braids line up as much as they can. And I'm going to take some of those jumbo clips from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to clip them onto the stem here to help me hold it together while I attach the sides, okay? And I'm going to do that with some wire. Now, if you have zip ties, you could probably use 2 or 3 zip ties going down the side. But I have some wire that's pretty firm, but still flexible. And I'm going to kind of stitch it in, down the side a little bit, okay? And I did struggle a little bit to get my holes started. So I wanted to poke a hole, okay, on the inside of the wire frame, okay? And I ended up having to use my scissors to do that, to get through the mop strand, and to get through the glue, and to get through the cotton batting that was there. So if I were to do it again, I may not have taken that last little piece of mop strand, that very, very last one. I might have just left that empty, because it's going to get covered up anyways, and it might have been easier for me to get that, to poke that my scissors through to get the hole. So I did that, and literally just like a stitch, I'm gonna get my wire in there, and I'm gonna twist it off to secure it. And then I'm gonna go down, I think I go down like 3 more times, and literally go through the top, down through the bottom, up, down through the top, down through the bottom again. And you'll see me do that here. Okay, so now we've got our two halves secured together, and I'm going to show you that if you're going to display this like a pillow on your couch, okay, then you don't need to be concerned about the bottom of the pumpkin, okay, but it won't stand up, okay. If you want to display this on a mantle or on a table, then we're going to have to adjust the bottom to help make it stand up. And I'm going to do that using some Jenga blocks. I'm not exactly sure how many I need, so I just take out a bunch. And I'm trying to decide if I want to put them the long way or the short way, if that makes sense, horizontally or vertical. And I decide that I'm going to put them in the wide way to get a wider opening. And I think I only ended up using 3 of them. Yeah, I think I only ended up using 3 of them. And I just hot glued them in there. And sure enough, makes it stand up straight. Great. Okay, so now we're going to take care of the sides, and we're going to cover up this mess that we made wiring these 2 forms together. And you should have 2 fat braids, large braids, left over, and we're going to use those to cover up the sides. Now I'm going to open the top up and see where those 2 fat braids, large braids come together. I'm going to tuck the end of the braid in there, masking tape and all. I'm not going to bother taking it off. Okay, I'm going to tuck that braid right in there, and I'm going to kind of flip it up, and I'm going to glue it down over the seams on the sides, and then I'm just going to tuck that little piece of the end of the braid inside, and you'll see me, it'll make sense here. Just watch what I do here. Okay, once you get those sides covered up, you want to remember to go back and lift up those outer loops of each braid on both sides and hit them with the hot glue so that we can seal all those edges and hide that mess that we made wiring them together. And you can see here that I decided to add a piece of felt to the bottom to cover up the opening there. Now I've already added a piece of wire going from the front to the back. I'm going to lay that down. We'll get back to that in a minute. But now I've cut another piece, a little bit shorter. This one's probably about 15 inches. And I'm going to take the middle of it and I'm going to wire that around the top where the two stems meet. Okay, so I have the longer piece, about 24 inches, going front to back. And I have the tails of this wire coming up from the sides. Okay, I'm trying to create like you know how a stem of a pumpkin almost looks not really squarish, but you can see the ridges in it. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm widening the base. I'm going to hold my finger down to determine how wide I want the stem to be. And then I'm going to gather up all the wires together, all 4 of them, and taper it off as it gets to the end of the stem, and then curl it into a shape until my eyes are happy. Now we're going to cover up that wire, and I got some craft paper on a big roll from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut a length. I don't know how long this is, maybe 12, 14 inches, but I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to kind of cut it in a triangle, wider at the bottom and tapering off at the top. Okay, then I'm going to go in the bottom and I'm going to put some notches in. That's going to help me bend it around, and it's also going to kind of give it a more authentic look when I glue it into the strands of the mop head. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to crumple it up, get it more pliable, and then I'm going to actually spray it with some water, and I may crumple it up again. I think I do crumple it up again after I get it all wet. Okay, and I'm going to place the bottom around the form, the pumpkin form, around the wire. I'm going to get the bottom on first, and I'm going to just kind of twist it, pull it, poke it, do all the things until I get it looking the way that I like it. And then I'm going to brush it all with some Mod Podge and then really get my hands in there and really shape it into the stem that I want. right, we got our stem looking like we want it. My eyes are happy. And now I want to add some tendrils. Okay, the little curly cute things that, you know, come off the vine. It looks like you pulled it right out of the ground. And if you're new to my channel, this is how I store my twine. I put them in a little sugar shaker that I get at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to pull out about a 24-inch length maybe. And I'm going to roll that up and I'm going to stick it into my bottle of Mod Podge. And I'm going to squeeze out the excess as I pull it through. And while it's wet, I'm just going to kind of wrap it, loop it, curl it, play with it, do all the fun things to get it looking super cute. Come on, you guys. How fun is that? I could do that kind of stuff for hours. So I'm taking my antique wax, and if you're new here, I always poke a hole in the top of my foil so that I let it drizzle out, and I use it that way, and I save so much product by doing that. So I'm going to add a little bit of dimension here. I'm going to go in with some antique wax. I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to go over it with a little bit of a dry brush with some white chalk paint. And you guys, when this thing is dry and it's done, it really feels like an old crusty wooden stem. But did you know that it is really called a peduncle? It's called a peduncle. When I heard my girl Bree at Bree's Arts call it that, I just thought it was one of her cute little Canadian words, but nope. I looked it up. She was right. It's called a peduncle. So now you know. Okay, so next we are going to add a little more embellishments, and I'm going to get these oak leaves, not the maple leaves, the oak leaves from Dollar Tree, the burlap ones, and I'm going to make a little tag and a messy bow. I also wanted to show you some of these options that I found this year at the Dollar Tree, this wooden leaf and these really cute wooden tags. Those would be really cute. But for this project, we're going to use the cardboard tag. And I found these acorns that I thought I was going to use, but I decided not to. But I'm definitely going to use them for something because they are adorable. All right, so I'm going to I actually ended up taking 3 of these leaves. And see, here I'm just drizzling out my antique wax and using what I need. And I'm going to just run it around the edges of these leaves. This levels them up just a little bit and gives them a little bit of dimension. You can see the difference right here. So this tag was the whole inspiration for this pumpkin. And I'm going to show you how to transfer onto a dark surface. You guys all know how to do it on a light surface, right? You scratch the back with a pencil of your image, you lay it down onto what you want, you trace it out. Well, what do you do when you want it on a dark surface, right? I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, I'm going to give you a tip with these tags, okay? If you're going to use a paint pen on them, give them a light coat of Mod Podge first and let it dry. Otherwise, you're going to have to do probably 2 or 3 layers of your paint pen because it just soaks it right up. So I've traced out the shape of my tag so that I can get my spacing exactly the way I want it for my letters. And I'm writing out sweater weather. That's how we say it here in Massachusetts. Sweater weather. okay? And I want to transfer it onto the black tag. So the way that you do that is you flip your image over and you scratch the back of it with chalk, okay? So that when you flip that over and you lay it down onto your project, you'll be able to see a very faint outline of your words. So if you've been following me for a minute, you know that I like to make my tags two-sided and reversible. So I'm going to freehand the word grateful on the other side of this tag, but I'm doing this to also show you that I did not put Mod Podge on this side of the tag, right? So I want to show you the difference of what it looks like with and without. So this is without, and as you can see, it really soaks up into the paper, and I'll probably have to go over that one more time, maybe two more times. Definitely two more times. Okay, now it's time to make our messy bow, and then we're going to put all this together and this beauty be complete. So I've taken all my ribbons that I want to use, and I'm sure you guys know how to do a messy bow. The crisscross bow, you lay your bows out one way, then the other way, and you pinch them all together, you tie them off, give it a shake, and it's just a messy bow. I usually like to use my burlap, or in this case, that tan buffalo check is pretty sturdy. I like to use my sturdier ribbons on the bottom to get started. So as you can see, I layered them all crisscross applesauce. I'm going to grab some of my twine, and I'm going to tie this in the middle, and then I'm going to give it a good shake, and then I'm going to glue it onto the pumpkin. No, first I put on the leaves. Sorry. First I glue the leaves on, and then I glue the bow on, and then I figure out how to get the where I want the tag to go. That's it, you guys. We made it to the end of this one. I know I gave you a lot of content, but now you know everything you need to know to get into our next DIY. So with that being said, here is your final reveal. Oh my goodness, you guys, how gorgeous is that? So now you have all the skills to take you into this DIY, and it's going to give us all the same feels and textures as our first DIY with about half of the labor. Okay, so with that being said, let's get right into this pumpkin lantern. Okay, you guys, so for this DIY, I took 2 forms. I painted them white. I worked on each one separately. I glued each braid down on the spine. You know how to make the big large braids with the 9 strands. Okay, I laid each braid down, glued that onto the spine or the rib of each of the pumpkin. And then you can see that I took single strands and I wrapped them around the areas of the form that was exposed. Then I wired the form where the stem is at the top. I wired the stem together, and then I took single strands of the mop head, and I wrapped the top of each half together. Okay, so I didn't really glue them. I just kind of pressed them together after I had the stem wired up, and I wrapped the strand around the top part of the pumpkin form. Now for the bottom of the pumpkin, I did not want those to be shut together. I wanted to leave that open so that it would leave a wide base and this could stand. So that meant the sides of the pumpkin forms were not really meeting, but the braids were wide enough that I could glue each side of the braid down around each side of the pumpkin form perfectly, and it would cover that space. Then I finished off the stem the same way as I did in the first DIY, except for this DIY I used the wired twine instead of dipping the regular twine in my Mod Podge to make the tendrils. And that's basically it for this one. I'm going to take one of those Dollar Tree wooden leaf tags. I'm going to change that up a bit and embellish the top. I'll show you how to do that, and then I'll show you how I filled it up. And this DIY will be complete. cut out a little decal for this side with my Cricut, but for the other side of this leaf, I'm going to do something really cool. And I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but I'm going to decoupage some tissue paper onto the back side of this leaf, and I'm going to use my glue stick. And normally I would smooth that out, let it dry, and get into all those little nooks and crannies with a fingernail file to get a nice smooth edge. But today I am going to burn it off, and it is so cool and so satisfying to watch. Is that not the coolest thing to watch, you guys? So right here, I'm just darkening the edges, and I'm going over top with a little dry brush of antique wax. So you can see I added my bead here and tied a knot off the top. Now I'm going to take my lighter and get off all those fuzzies, and that makes this tag complete. So here is your final reveal. And here it is, all lit up and filled with all kinds of fall florals from the Dollar Tree. I think it is just gorgeous. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And here they both are, side by side, in their glory. I am absolutely in love with the textures and the cozy fall vibes that these are giving off. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And if you're going to try and tackle one, I'm here for you. Reach out to me with any questions, any problems that you might run into. Follow me on Instagram. It's a great place to reach out to me and connect and chat. It's a little bit more personal, and I can help you with anything that you might need. I really appreciate you guys being here and taking the time. I know this was a long video today. Please share with your friends if you found any value in this tutorial. And as always, you guys, thank you for watching. And show me the love by doing all those YouTubey things and pressing all the buttons, sprinkling this about, and sharing with your friends. See you in the next one.